The Joint Subcommittee will come to order. After recognizing myself, Ranking Member Deutsch, Ranking Member Sherman for 5 minutes each for our opening statements, I will then recognize the Chair of the full Foreign Affairs Committee, Mr. Royce, for such time as he may consume. I will then recognize other members seeking recognition for 1 minute. Unfortunately, due to weather, Mr. Poe has been delayed, but he hopes that he will be able to make it before our hearing ends. We will then hear from our witnesses, and without objection, the witnesses' prepared statements will be made a part of the record, and members may have 5 days to insert statements and questions for the record, subject to the length limitations in the rules. The Chair now recognizes herself for 5 minutes. Last November, President Obama announced that the P5+1 and Iran had come to an interim agreement over Iran's nuclear program. The administration hails it as a big step forward, yet it refuses to allow the full details to be made public. I viewed the text, as have many others on our panel here today, and I don't see any reason for it to remain a state secret other than the administration doesn't want the American people to see how badly we got suckered. The Joint Plan of Action is a lopsided bad deal for the United States and for our allies, like the Democratic Jewish State of Israel, and Iran continues to take advantage of it every day. And that is the crux of the problem here. The administration is asking us to trust it, that it can ensure that the Iranian regime plays by the rules when 35 years proves otherwise. So today we are taking an in-depth look at exactly with whom we are dealing as the administration seeks to make deals with the Iranian regime. The hearing will focus on perhaps the most critical fact that has been downplayed and even ignored throughout this nuclear deal process, and that is the fact that Iran is the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism. Iran is only one of 4 countries designated by the United States as a state sponsor of terrorism, SST. In order to be designated an SST, a country must have repeatedly provided support for acts of international terror, and that is a major part of Iran's foreign policy. Recently, we have seen Iran support terrorist acts in Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, and even right here in Washington, D.C., as an Iranian plot to assassinate the ambassador of Saudi Arabia was uncovered. Then there is Iran's involvement in Latin America. Iran's presence there has grown rapidly and now poses a very serious threat to our national security. Last year, I convened a hearing on the Iran-Syria nexus, and Ambassador John Bolton testified that the largest Iranian diplomacy facility in the world is in Caracas, Venezuela, because that is where Iran launders its money. Yet, even though all the evidence pointed to the contrary, the State Department issued a report that claimed that Iran's influence in Latin America is waning. Dr. Levitt, you testified at the time that the report was incomplete, full of faulty assumptions, and that the proper people were not consulted before the report was issued. This is very troubling indeed, especially this year, the 20th anniversary of the EMEA bombings on the Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires, Argentina, that left 85 dead and hundreds more wounded. It is very troubling because it shows that the administration either doesn't have the full grasp of how dangerous Iran really is, or is choosing to be willfully ignorant of the situation. And this, of course, doesn't even include Iran's support for terrorist activity and pro-Iranian armed forces in the Middle East. Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, has been wreaking havoc throughout the region for decades and has been responsible for numerous attacks, especially its incessant and deadly attacks aimed at Israel. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Quds Force have cultivated and supported terrorist activities worldwide, providing money, arms, material, and fighters for terrorist groups all over the map. Most notably, Iran, through the IRGC, the Quds Force, and Hezbollah, has been instrumental in propping up the Assad regime in Syria. Yet none of this was part of the Joint Plan of Action, and none of this is being discussed as the administration attempts to reach a comprehensive agreement on Iran's nuclear plan. The administration is dealing with these talks as if Iran's nuclear program exists in a vacuum. as if the nuclear program is not somehow related to Iran's support for terror. And the most dangerous part of these negotiations is that the administration is willing to ignore these facts and other aspects of the regime so that it can say that it has reached a deal with Iran. That is why I think this hearing is critical, so that we can draw attention to the true nature of the regime in Tehran. And with that, I'm pleased to yield to the ranking member, my good friend from Florida, Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you.